They told me it was a miracle I survived. I didn't see it that way. When I woke up in the hospital, I could smell antiseptic and burnt rubber. My right hand was wrapped in layers of gauze, fingers stiff as wood. The surgeon who saved it said I should be grateful. I remember laughing. I used to be the one holding the scalpel. Now I couldn't even hold a fork. The accident came out of nowhere. Rain, headlights, a curve I'd driven 100 times before. I don't remember losing control. Just the sound, metal screaming, glass exploding, and then silence. It's strange how life ends with a noise and begins again in quiet. They said I could recover some function. They said physical therapy. They said time. I heard none of it. I just watched the tremor. Every morning, it was there, faint at first, then worse. The small vibration that meant I would never operate again. 3 months later, I sold my car. A month after that, my condo. My fiancée left a note, not a goodbye. You were already gone before the crash. She was right. I'd been gone for a long time, I just hadn't noticed. When the board suspended my surgical license, I didn't fight it. What was the point? My career ended on a rainy road, somewhere between the city and nowhere. I started drinking to fill the silence. At first, just enough to sleep. Then, enough not to care. I traded my white coat for flannel shirts and a bottle of cheap bourbon. I sold my instruments, even my old watch, a graduation gift from my father. I wanted to erase the man I used to be. That's how I ended up here, a forgotten cabin in Oregon, swallowed by pines. Bought it off a retired logger who looked at me like he knew I wouldn't last a winter. He was wrong. I didn't die. I just stopped living where people could see me. The first few weeks felt like freedom. No alarms, no scrub rooms, no family staring through glass while I played God. Just firewood, silence, and the occasional crow outside the window. I thought I'd finally found peace. But peace and emptiness are the same thing after a while. I learned the rhythm of isolation. Mornings for chopping wood. Afternoons for reading old books I didn't finish. Evenings for drinking. Nights for not thinking. I made one trip to town every couple of weeks, 20 miles of winding dirt road to a gas station and a small grocery store. They knew me there as the doctor. I never corrected them. I'd load my truck with canned food, whiskey, and whatever frozen meals I could carry. People stared sometimes, the way they look at an animal that used to be human. But they left me alone. I liked it that way. Then something changed. It was small. Almost nothing. I came back from town one night, headlights cutting through fog. The cabin looked the same creaking porch, same door that jammed halfway open. But when I stepped inside, the air smelled wrong. Not the usual mix of wood smoke and mildew, something softer. Sweet. Like jasmine. I froze. Everything was in its place, the books, the old lamp, the empty bottles on the table. But the photo on the mantel, the one of my surgical team, had been moved. Not by much. Just tilted, like someone had touched it and changed their mind halfway through. It shouldn't have bothered me. But it did. I checked every window. Locked. Every drawer. Closed. The door, still latched from the outside. No footprints on the porch. Nothing missing. No signs of entry at all. Still, I couldn't shake it. That smell, faint but real. I walked around the room again, touching each thing I owned. The bottle. The lamp. The photo. Everything was where I left it, but it didn't feel mine anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind scraped branches against the roof, and every creak sounded deliberate. Around 3 a.m., I thought I heard something, a soft click, like footsteps outside on the porch. I held my breath, waited. Nothing. Just the sound of the forest breathing. I told myself I was imagining it. That isolation does things to the brain. But when I woke up the next morning, the photo frame was perfectly straight again. And the smell of jasmine was gone. I started locking the door twice after that. Then 3 times. By the end of the week, I caught myself listening for the silence, not just hearing it, but studying it. Like the air itself was holding its breath. I thought I'd come out here to forget the past. But the past has a way of remembering you, even when you don't remember it. And that night, for the first time since the accident, I dreamed of blood. The first letter came 2 weeks later. I found it pinned to the door when I came back from town. No return address, no handwriting, just words cut from magazines, glued to plain white paper. The accident was only the beginning. That was it. No signature, no threats, no demands. Just that. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for my mind to explain it away. Maybe a prank. Maybe one of the locals testing the crazy hermit in the woods. But the longer I looked, the less it felt like a joke. The edges of the paper were damp, the glue still tacky. Whoever left it had been here recently. I burned the letter in the fireplace. Watched the words curl and blacken. Then I locked the door twice and poured another drink. But that night, the smell came back. Same faint trace of jasmine. Sweet, delicate, out of place in this damp wooden box I called home. It clung to the air like memory, not strong enough to be real, but impossible to ignore. I barely slept. When I did, I dreamed of glass shattering and a woman whispering something I couldn't understand. The next morning, I found the second letter. It was under my pillow. She died because of you. I sat there staring at it, every nerve in my body turning to ice. I hadn't seen another soul near this cabin since the day I moved in. Whoever it was, they'd been inside while I slept. I tore through the house, under the bed, behind the door, inside the pantry, even the crawl space beneath the floorboards. Nothing. Not a sound. No footprints outside. The air felt thinner, like something had passed through and left an echo behind. That's when I realized it wasn't the isolation that was driving me crazy. It was the thought that I wasn't alone. For the next few days, I left every light on at night. Slept with the rifle beside me. My hand still shook when I held it, but I figured even a bad shot could scare someone off. By the fourth day, exhaustion won. I drifted off sometime before dawn. When I woke up, the smell was gone again, replaced by something faintly metallic, like old coins or blood. Then came the third letter. It was waiting on the kitchen table, folded neatly beside my empty glass. You killed her. I will kill you. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember the glass shattering on the floor. I just remember my hands trembling, not from nerve damage this time, but from something deeper. It wasn't just fear. It was recognition. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew that phrase. Not the words themselves, but the weight behind them, the shape of the blame. I'd lost patience before. I'd stood over lifeless bodies, hearts that refused to start again. But I never remembered faces. I couldn't. Surgeons can't afford ghosts. That night, I found myself sitting on the porch, staring into the dark. The woods were perfectly still. Not a single sound, no wind, no insects, no rain. Just silence thick enough to choke on. I spoke out loud for the first time in months. Who are you? The forest didn't answer. But in the distance, something moved, the brief flicker of a shape between the trees. Tall, human. Then gone. I stayed up until sunrise, rifle in my lap, eyes on the window. Nothing. By the next morning, I was already halfway to town. The clerk at the grocery store looked at me funny. I probably looked worse than usual, unshaven, hollow-eyed, jittery. I bought more whiskey, canned soup, and extra lox. As I was paying, I asked if anyone had been asking about me. He frowned. No one ever asks about you. I drove home slower this time, checking the mirror every few minutes. Once, I thought I saw a vehicle, a blue pickup, a few hundred feet behind. But every time I turned, it disappeared into the bends of the road. When I reached the cabin, I left the groceries in the truck and walked the perimeter. Nothing. The ground was wet, but there were no footprints. Only mine. Inside, everything looked untouched. For the first time in days, I let myself breathe. Until I saw the photo. The one on the mantel, the surgical team from my last year at the hospital. Only now, there was something new in the frame. A small slip of paper tucked into the corner. I pulled it out. One sentence, typed this time. Do you remember her? No name. No photo. No clue. I sat down, staring at the fire, trying to drag memories from years I'd buried. Faces blurred together, patients, families, colleagues. I couldn't even recall who my last operation had been on. That realization hit harder than the accident ever did. I used to hold people's hearts in my hands. And now, I couldn't remember a single one of them. That night, I called Frank Doyle, a retired investigator I'd known from the hospital. He used to handle internal reviews, malpractice audits, the messy things surgeons pretended didn't happen. Frank, it's Nathan, I said when he answered. A pause. Christ, Cole. Haven't heard that name in a while. You sound like hell. I need a favor, I told him. Someone's been sending me letters. Threats. I think they know me, or think they do. Cops, he asked. No. Not yet. He sighed. All right. Send me pictures of what you've got. I'll take a look. I promised I would, but when I hung up, I didn't. I burned them all again. Every letter. Every word. And yet, that night, I woke up to the smell of jasmine, stronger this time, almost suffocating. On my pillow was a single Polaroid. A young woman smiling, standing on a porch I didn't recognize. Her face meant nothing to me. But written on the back, in uneven red ink, were 6 words that froze my blood. You killed her. I will kill you. It was raining the night she came. Hard, cold rain that turned the ground into black mud and erased every sound beyond the porch. I'd fallen asleep in the chair by the fire, half drunk, the rifle leaning against the wall. The knock startled me awake. 3 short raps. Hesitant, almost polite. For a moment I thought I'd dreamed it. But then it came again, louder. I opened the door and froze. A young woman stood there, drenched to the bone, water dripping from her hair onto the porch. She couldn't have been more than 21, maybe 22. Her clothes were torn, her eyes wide, wild, the look of someone who'd run until she couldn't anymore. I'm sorry, she stammered. I got lost. My car. Her voice cracked. She didn't finish. Something in me wanted to shut the door. I'd spent months avoiding people, and now one was standing on my doorstep like she'd stepped out of a nightmare. But there was something fragile in her expression, something that stopped me. Come in, I said. She hesitated, then stepped inside. The cabin smelled of smoke and whiskey. I grabbed a blanket and handed it to her. She wrapped it around herself, trembling, staring at the fire like she hadn't seen warmth in days. What happened? I asked. She shook her head. Just needed to get away. From who? My stepfather, she said quietly. She stopped. I can't go back. Her name was Lila Carver. She said she'd grown up a few towns away, that she'd been staying with her mother and stepfather until recently. The more she talked, the more her story fell apart, little details that didn't line up. But her fear was real. I could see it in her hands, trembling worse than mine. I told her she could stay the night. One night. She nodded, eyes heavy, like she hadn't slept in days. By morning, the rain had stopped. The forest was silent again, everything washed clean. Lila was sitting by the fire, wearing one of my flannel shirts. She'd made coffee. Didn't think you'd still be here, I said. I didn't think you'd let me, she replied. Something about the way she said it made me pause. Like she already knew I would. She stayed that day. Helped clean, cooked, even fixed the squeaky back door. She moved around the cabin like she'd lived there for years. I told myself it was temporary, but by nightfall, I didn't ask her to leave. Maybe because the silence didn't feel as heavy when she was there. Maybe because I didn't want to be alone anymore. Days turned into a week. Lila was quiet but curious. She asked questions about my life, my work. I told her I'd been a surgeon, but didn't say more. Most people would have asked what happened, she didn't. She just nodded, like she already knew. At night, we'd sit by the fire. Sometimes she'd hum softly, songs I didn't recognize. Her presence was strange, comforting but unsettling. Like I was living with a reflection of someone I'd forgotten. But the letters hadn't stopped. I'd burned the last ones, but a new one appeared. This time under my coffee mug. She looks like her, doesn't she? I dropped it. My blood turned cold. I hadn't told anyone about the letters, not even Frank. No one should have known. And yet someone did. That night, I caught Lila standing by the window, staring into the dark. Something wrong? I asked. She flinched. I thought I saw someone outside. I grabbed the rifle, went to the porch. The forest was quiet. But the smell of jasmine hung faintly in the air again. When I came back in, Lila was pale. You said you live alone here, she whispered. I do. Then why is there a light in the woods? I turned, and saw it. Through the trees, faint but steady. A flashlight beam. It flickered once, then vanished. We didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called Frank. Told him everything. The letters. The photo. The girl. He was silent for a moment. Then said, send me a picture of the photo again. I might be able to trace it. I burned it. Of course you did, he muttered. All right. Describe it. Mid-20s. Light hair. Smiling. Standing on a porch. There was a pause. Was her name Alyssa Moore? The name hit me like a blade between the ribs. How do you? You operated on her, Frank said. 4 years ago. Cardiac rupture. She didn't make it. Her boyfriend filed a complaint. Simon Hale. The case never went to court. You don't remember? I didn't. Not the name, not the face. Just the pattern, another patient I couldn't save. There had been hundreds. Thousands. But something about the way Frank said it made my skin crawl. You think he's the one sending the letters? I asked. I think someone wants you to feel what he felt, he said. Be careful, Nathan. People with grief like that don't heal. They rot. When I hung up, Lila was standing behind me. She'd heard everything. You think someone's coming after you? She asked. I think someone already has. Her eyes darkened. You should leave this place. I almost laughed. And go where? She didn't answer. She just looked at me, really looked, and for a second, something passed between us. A current, sharp and unspoken. That night, she kissed me. It wasn't soft or shy. It was desperate, like she was trying to breathe through me. And when she pulled away, she whispered, you can't keep running from what you've done. I wanted to ask what she meant. But she was already walking away, her silhouette disappearing into the dark hall. I sat there by the fire for a long time, the taste of her lips mixing with smoke and fear. And that's when I noticed it again. The smell of jasmine. Stronger than ever. The morning after the storm, the forest was too quiet. Lila moved through the cabin like a shadow, saying little, eyes distant. The silence had weight. I felt it pressing down, thick as the mist outside. I needed air. I told her I was going to town for supplies. She nodded but didn't look up. The drive felt wrong. The trees leaned closer, the road narrower than I remembered. Halfway there, my phone buzzed, unknown number. You took her heartbeat from me, Cole, a man's voice said, calm and broken. Now I'll take yours. The line went dead. I turned the truck around and drove back fast enough to make the tires scream. Gravel flew, branches scraped the windshield, and with every turn came a single thought, Lila. When I reached the cabin, the door was open. Curtains blew inward. The smell hit first, gasoline mixed with jasmine. Inside, Lila was tied to a chair, ropes cutting into her wrists. A man stood behind her. Thin, pale, eyes hollow, Simon Hale. I recognized him from a photograph I'd once seen in a file I barely remembered. Alyssa Moore's boyfriend. He didn't yell. His voice was steady, almost gentle. You killed her, doctor. You cut her open, told me she'd live. And then you just forgot. His words came like shards. I couldn't speak. He stepped closer, eyes burning. The crash was my gift. I wanted you to understand what it feels like to lose your hands, to lose what you love most. The truth landed with cold precision. My accident, the one that ended everything, hadn't been an accident at all. He raised a knife. I moved without thinking, grabbed his arm. Pain shot through my shoulder, the tremor betrayed me. The knife grazed my skin, shallow but hot. The two of us slammed into the wall. The gasoline scent filled my lungs. Then a sound, a crack like thunder. Simon staggered, eyes wide. Lila stood behind him, rifle trembling in her hands, smoke rising from the barrel. He collapsed at her feet. Hours later, the police arrived. Frank too, drawn by the call trace he'd been watching. The story came together in fragments. Simon had followed me since the day Alyssa died. Broken into the cabin, left the letters, tampered with my car. Every move, every scare, planned. He'd poured gasoline everywhere, planning to burn the place, and me with it. When they carried him out, I felt nothing. No anger, no relief. Just an emptiness that settled in the bones. The papers later called it a revenge obsession. For a few days, my name filled headlines again, not as a surgeon, not even as a victim, just another tragedy in a world that never runs out of them. Then the noise faded. Lila stayed. She said she had nowhere else to go, and maybe I didn't either. We fixed the cabin together. She rarely mentioned that night, and neither did I. But sometimes I'd catch her staring at my hands, as if measuring how much damage could ever truly heal. Days blurred into weeks. The forest turned green again. The world outside went on pretending to be peaceful. I almost believed I could start over. Then, one morning, I opened the door. An envelope lay on the porch, no handwriting, no postage, just words cut from newspaper. She wasn't his only love. The smell of jasmine drifted through the doorway. And I realized it hadn't ended at all.